More than a decade after Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 vanished from radar shortly after taking off from Kuala Lumpur.
It's the greatest aviation mystery of all time.
Malaysia 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9.
So will it be third time lucky in the attempts to solve one of the greatest aviation mysteries of all time?
After many years, the world's most famous airplane mystery might finally be solved. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, which disappeared in 2014 with 239 people on board, has avoided every search until now.
You know, there's nobody got better resources or better people right now to conduct this search, and it's the best chance of success is with them.
A high-tech underwater drone diving into the dark, crushing depths of the southern Indian Ocean has reportedly reached the plane's final resting spot. For more than a decade, families, investigators, and the world asked, "Where is MH370?" Now, the ocean may finally reveal its secret. But as images come from the deep, one chilling question stays. What will the wreck show about the plane's last moments? Join us in this video as we reveal the details. Underwater drone reached MH370's location. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 disappeared on March 8, 2014, during what was supposed to be a normal overnight flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. The aircraft was a Boeing 777 carrying 239 people, including passengers and crew. Less than 1 hour after takeoff, all contact with the plane was lost. There was no distress call. There was no warning message. The aircraft simply stopped communicating. This sudden silence immediately caused concern because modern commercial aircraft are designed with multiple layers of communication and tracking systems. When all of them go quiet at once, it strongly suggests something abnormal has taken place. In the hours and days that followed, confusion spread quickly. Authorities initially believed the plane had gone down in the South China Sea, close to where contact was lost. This assumption shaped the early search effort. Ships and aircraft were sent to scan the surface of the water, looking for debris, oil slicks, or any sign of a crash. However, nothing connected to the aircraft was found. As time passed, it became clear that the disappearance was not simple and not localized. The absence of wreckage raised serious questions and forced investigators to reconsider their assumptions. As more data was reviewed, it became evident that Flight MH370 had not crashed immediately after losing contact. Satellite communication records indicated that the aircraft remained airborne for several hours after it vanished from civilian radar. This discovery transformed the investigation entirely. It meant the plane had traveled far beyond the original search area into one of the most remote parts of the planet. The focus shifted to the southern Indian Ocean, an area known for extreme depths, rough conditions, and limited mapping. The official search effort that followed became the largest aviation search in history. Multiple countries worked together, contributing ships, aircraft, satellites, and technical expertise. Australia took on a leading role in coordinating the underwater search. Over time, the operation expanded to cover approximately 120,000 square kilometers of ocean floor. This was an enormous area, larger than many countries. Advanced sonar systems and autonomous underwater vehicles were used to scan the seabed at depths reaching 4 kilometers. The operation lasted several years and cost more than $150 million. Despite the scale and cost of the effort, the official search failed to locate the main wreckage of the aircraft. Crews mapped underwater mountains, deep trenches, and vast empty plains of sediment. But no sign of Flight MH370 was found. In 2017, with no new leads and no additional data to guide further searching, authorities made the decision to suspend operations. This decision was deeply painful for the families of those on board, many of whom felt the search had ended without real closure. While the main wreckage remained missing, physical evidence did eventually begin to appear. Starting in 2015, pieces of aircraft debris were found washed up on shorelines across the Indian Ocean. One of the most important discoveries was a wing component known as a flaperon, found on Réunion Island. Experts confirmed through serial numbers and manufacturing records that it belonged to Flight MH370. Over the following years, more than 30 additional pieces were recovered from locations such as Madagascar, Mozambique, and South Africa. These debris finds confirmed that the aircraft had indeed crashed into the ocean. However, they also created new questions. The wide spread of debris suggested long-term movement by ocean currents, but it also raised doubts about the accuracy of the original crash location models. If debris could travel so far, then it was possible that the aircraft itself was not where investigators had been searching. This growing gap between evidence and assumptions kept the mystery alive. In July 2018, Malaysian authorities released their final official report on the disappearance. The document was extensive and detailed, but its conclusions were limited. Investigators stated that there was no evidence of mechanical failure and no proof of sabotage or terrorism. Pilot involvement was examined but not confirmed. Ultimately, the report admitted that the cause of the disappearance could not be determined unless the aircraft was found. After years of work and enormous expense, the central question remained unanswered. So, if years of searching, millions spent, and official reports still could not explain what really happened to Flight MH370, what changed when private investigators went back to the ocean with new ideas, new technology, and a very different place to look? Let's learn more. Renewed search, claims, unusual findings, and questions that remain. Interest in Flight M370 continued for many years after the official search was halted. The available data, such as satellite communications, aircraft performance data, and ocean drift patterns, were still being checked by independent researchers. New models that questioned assumptions surfaced throughout time. According to these models, the jet might have crashed in a different part of the Indian Ocean than was previously studied. This reanalysis served as the basis for a new private search plan. A fresh mission with new underwater technologies was launched in 2024 by a privately funded expedition. Unlike former searches, the autonomous underwater vehicles used in this endeavor were more advanced. They could scan larger regions, work at deeper depths, and take better pictures of the seafloor. The crew focused on a former unexplored area to the west of the initial search zones. The drones eventually found a sizable debris field at a depth of about 3,800 meters, according to reports from this mission. According to reports, the images showed fuselage pieces, wing parts, seats, and personal possessions scattered around the ocean floor. It was claimed that some of the markings on the debris matched those of Flight MH370. The team came to the conclusion that they had found the primary wreckage site of the missing aircraft based on these data. The apparent state of the wreckage was what set these finds apart. The damage patterns, according to analysts analyzing the video, were different from those usually observed in high-speed collisions. Some portions appeared to have split along structural joints rather than being forcefully pulled apart. According to reports, the landing gear was discovered in a deployed position, unusual for an aircraft that crashes after its fuel runs out. These facts raised the prospect that the plane might have been under control when it went down. Instead of a spontaneous, uncontrollable crash, a controlled ditching attempt would be implied if the plane had been purposefully directed into the ocean. In this case, the pilot would have survived and continued to fly the airplane until the bitter end. The disappearance of the aircraft's black boxes was another vital issue brought up by the published results. The flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder are typically the most resilient parts of a downed aircraft since they are made to withstand harsh environments. Difficult questions were raised by their apparent absence from the debris field. It was unclear if they had been completely removed, buried in sediment, or transported away by currents. Images from the cargo compartment purportedly revealed irregularities in addition to the missing recordings. There were no contents in one container, which looked to have been opened from the inside. While the official cargo manifest listed standard commercial items, The nature of this particular container was not fully explained. This detail added another layer of uncertainty to an already complex situation. Despite the significance of these claims, many questions remain unanswered. The reported discoveries have not yet been independently verified or formally confirmed by government authorities. Even if the wreckage location is validated, it may still take years to fully analyze the site and recover critical components. What remains unclear is why the aircraft followed its unusual route and what motivated the actions taken during its final hours. In the end, the disappearance of Flight MH370 continues to resist simple explanations. The available information points toward deliberate actions rather than random failure, yet no clear motive has been established. If the plane stayed in the air for hours, changed course on purpose, and vanished without a word, how did investigators use silent signals and deep-sea technology to follow its final path into the ocean's darkest depths? Let's find out. Silent signals and the search beneath the ocean. Soon after Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 left Kuala Lumpur, something strange happened that quickly worried aviation officials. One of the earliest and most important events was the sudden loss of the plane's transponder signal. This system normally sends key details, such as the aircraft's position, height, and speed, to air traffic control. Without any warning, the signal stopped. Just before that moment, the pilots made their final radio call, calmly saying, "Good night, Malaysian 370. There was no panic in their voices, no emergency message, and no sign that anything was wrong. Then, suddenly, the plane went silent. This kind of sudden shutdown was unusual and raised serious questions because aircraft are built with backup systems to prevent this from happening by accident. Not long after the transponder stopped working, new details came to light that made the mystery even deeper. Military radar data later showed that the aircraft did not continue on its planned path toward Beijing. Instead, the plane turned back, crossing over Malaysia and heading west. After that, it changed direction again. This movement did not look random. The plane stayed at steady heights and followed paths that suggested someone was actively controlling it. For investigators, this was a major turning point. It suggested the aircraft was not simply drifting due to a failure, but was being guided. This led to difficult questions about who was in control and what their intentions might have been. After the plane disappeared from radar, many believed it had crashed quickly. However, satellite data showed something very different. Even though the aircraft could no longer be tracked by radar, it continued to send automatic signals to a satellite system. These signals, often called satellite handshakes, were not messages and did not reveal the plane's exact location. Still, they confirmed that the aircraft remained powered and flying for nearly 6 hours after it vanished from radar. By studying the timing of these signals, experts were able to estimate possible flight paths. This work led to the creation of 2 large arcs, showing where the plane might have gone, with one arc stretching far into the southern Indian Ocean. As years passed with no clear answers, official search missions slowed and were eventually paused. At that point, private groups stepped in with fresh ideas and new tools. One major change was the use of advanced robotic technology. A private ocean exploration company deployed autonomous underwater vehicles known as AUV. These robotic machines were built to travel deep below the ocean's surface, far beyond where humans could safely go. They used powerful sonar systems to scan the seabed in detail. Unlike earlier equipment, these vehicles could move on their own and carefully explore rough and uneven underwater ground. Over time, technology continued to improve, changing how experts approached the search. By the mid-2020s, better sonar images, stronger computers, and artificial intelligence made it possible to review old data in new ways. AI tools helped researchers look again at satellite signals, fuel use, and flight patterns. These systems could process huge amounts of information and find patterns humans might miss. As a result, search teams identified areas that earlier missions had skipped or could not fully examine because of technical limits at the time. One area that gained special attention was a distant and very difficult part of the southern Indian Ocean known as the Seahorse Zone. This region is marked by deep valleys, sharp underwater ridges, and rough terrain. Earlier searches avoided much of this area because it was too challenging to explore. New flight models, however, suggested the aircraft's final automated path could have passed through this zone. With improved technology, investigators began to see the Seahorse Zone as a key place that might finally hold answers to what happened to MH370. If the plane's disappearance wasn't a random accident, then who or what was guiding MH370 across thousands of kilometers of empty ocean, and how could a single human error change the course of history? Stay tuned for more details. Expert insight and the renewed hunt for MH370. In the long and tragic story of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, a key breakthrough in understanding the disappearance came from an experienced aviation engineer named Ismail Hamad. Hamad has spent decades working with commercial airplanes and has seen and studied almost every type of situation that could happen in the air. Unlike most investigators who focused mainly on satellite data and computer models, Hamad looked at the problem from the perspective of the people flying the plane. He suggested that the final turn off the planned flight path might not have been random. Instead, he believed that the plane was being flown manually and that a small, easily overlooked mistake caused it to drift far off course. Hamad focused on the use of a magnetic compass. This is an old but reliable tool that shows the pilot the direction of magnetic north. On modern planes, autopilot systems automatically adjust for differences between true north, which is the top of the globe, and magnetic north, which shifts slightly depending on location. But if someone is flying manually using only a magnetic compass, they can slowly drift off course without noticing. Over a flight lasting thousands of kilometers, even a small error in direction can grow into a major deviation. Hamad believes this is what happened to MH370. Whoever was in control of the plane, whether it was the pilot or someone else, may have unknowingly guided it along a path far different from what everyone expected. Hamad didn't stop with theory. He calculated how this compass drift would play out over the long flight and compared it to fuel data. His calculations suggested that the plane would not have ended up in the deep, mountainous seabed areas that previous searches had focused on. Instead, he pointed to a much smaller and more specific area, near the coast of Perth, Australia. This area is relatively shallow compared to the southern Indian Ocean zones previously scoured by search teams. If his theory is correct, the plane could have landed on the water in a more controlled manner, rather than crashing violently. Hamad also examined the debris that had washed up on distant shores over the years. These pieces of the plane, including wing fragments and parts of the fuselage, showed little corrosion and no scorch marks or signs of a high-speed explosion. For an experienced engineer, this was significant. It suggested that the plane may have hit the water gently, or at least more slowly than previously assumed, which would allow debris to remain closer together and more likely to stay intact. This insight aligned with his theory that the plane had flown a long distance and then made a controlled ditching, rather than breaking apart violently in mid-air. Armed with Hamad's analysis, the Malaysian government and the private company Ocean Infinity launched a new search in early 2025. Ocean Infinity specializes in deep-sea exploration and uses cutting-edge technology. Their approach was different from previous efforts. Instead of towing sonar equipment slowly behind a ship, they deployed autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs. These are intelligent robotic submarines that can move freely across the ocean floor. They carry advanced sonar and imaging systems that can map the seabed in high detail, distinguishing man-made objects from natural rocks, even if they are buried under sediment. The renewed search area was carefully chosen, incorporating all previous information, including satellite data, ocean current models, drift analysis of debris, and Hamad's compass drift theory. The mission was carried out on a no-find, no-fee basis, meaning the company would only get paid if the wreckage was located. This arrangement put enormous pressure on the team, but also ensured a strong incentive to succeed. The AUVs could operate continuously, mapping the ocean floor with precision, navigating dangerous underwater terrain, and covering areas previously inaccessible to older equipment. Despite the advanced technology and refined search area, the human element of the story remains central. Families of the 239 passengers and crew continue to live with uncertainty. Grace Nathan, whose mother was aboard MH370, described the emotional strain of the searches. Each new search brings a mix of hope and fear, relief and dread. Late Jaquita Gonzalez, whose husband was a crew member, explained that the pain of not knowing what happened is ongoing and uniquely agonizing. These personal experiences remind the world that this tragedy is more than a technical or scientific puzzle. It is a human disaster with deep emotional consequences. The 2025 search, informed by expert engineering insight and advanced technology, represents the most precise attempt yet to locate MH370. It combines decades of experience, intelligent robotics, careful analysis of debris, and innovative human theory. Beyond the machinery and computer models, it is a mission driven by the hope of finally answering the question that has haunted families and the world for over a decade. What really happened to Flight MH370? What really happened on the night Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 vanished? And why has its disappearance baffled the world for over a decade? Let's delve deeper. The vanishing of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, a decade-long mystery. From Kuala Lumpur International Airport, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 departed for Beijing. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah oversaw the flight with help from First Officer Farik Abdul Hamid. Both men had years of flying experience and were skilled pilots. The flight started out normally, and at exactly 1:07 a.m., the aircraft delivered its final routine transmission, showing that it was traveling to Beijing on a normal route. The flight quickly vanished from civilian radar a few minutes later. From inside the cockpit, the aircraft's transponder, which communicates position, speed, and altitude, had been turned off. Air traffic controllers would not be able to track the aircraft in the typical manner without it. However, MH370 was detected by a few military radar systems. The plane was first detected by Thai military radar close to Surat Thani province. When the jet reappeared on radar at 1:28 a.m., it was traveling far off its course and on a different route. At 2:15 a.m., Malaysian military radar detected the aircraft hundreds of miles off course over Pulau Perak in the Strait of Malacca before it completely disappeared. Serious concerns about what was going on inside the aircraft were raised by these strange radar signals, which showed that the plane had changed direction. One of the biggest search missions in aviation history was immediately initiated by Malaysia after the disappearance. The first operations were coordinated by the Kuala Lumpur Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center. The Civil Aviation Department, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Maritime Enforcement Agency were among the several Malaysian agencies who joined the search. Soon after, more than 26 nations joined in, sending ships, planes, and satellites to aid in the ocean sweep. The Andaman Sea, the South China Sea, and eventually the Southern Indian Ocean were among the search regions. In the initial weeks, no verified debris was found despite the many effort. The operation was very challenging due to harsh weather, powerful currents, and deep, isolated ocean regions. Since any wreckage on the ocean would have probably sunk by late April 2014, authorities formally canceled the surface search. Many eyewitness accounts emerged throughout the area during this time. Around 1:30 a.m., when the plane vanished from radar, two fishermen in the Kota Bharu area of Malaysia reported seeing a plane flying very low. Shortly after the plane took off, Mike McKay, an oil rig worker in Vietnam, reported seeing a burning object in the sky. Although a search in that area turned up nothing, he provided coordinates that suggested a crash site. Residents of an island in the Maldives reported seeing a low-flying jumbo jet that fit the description of MH370. Over 24 hours after the flight started, Indonesian fishermen reported seeing a plane crash into the ocean over the Strait of Malacca. Lastly, while on night watch, British sailor Catherine T. reported seeing a burning object in the Indian Ocean. Although none of these sightings could be completely verified, they gave detectives more leads. The personal life of Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah was also investigated. His wife apparently expressed her desire for a divorce in the days preceding the flight because of marital issues. The captain was very upset, according to friends and co-workers. At his house, authorities found a flight simulator with routes like the one MH370 took over the Indian Ocean. Although there has never been proof to support this notion, Several experts thought that the captain might have diverted the aircraft. The intricate and enigmatic nature of MH370's disappearance is shown by the combination of odd radar readings, extensive search efforts, eyewitness accounts, and an examination of the captain's personal life. Despite some debris washing up in the years that followed, the plane's main wreckage has never been found. Families of the passengers and crew, as well as investigators around the world, continue to search for answers more than a decade later. After years of scattered debris and unanswered theories, could the deep ocean finally reveal the full truth behind the disappearance of Flight MH370? Keep watching for more. The final resting place, MH370, found at last. On July 22, 2025, more than 11 years after its disappearance, Ocean Shield, a private ocean research company, deployed a high-tech underwater drone named Poseidon 21 to search the southern Indian Ocean. At a depth of over 4,700 meters, the drone spotted an unusual metallic shape partly buried in the ocean floor. After scanning and analyzing the object, experts confirmed it matched the missing Malaysian Airlines Flight MH370. Key features, including the tail number and the airline's markings, were visible, and the wreckage included a broken fuselage, landing gear, and parts of the cabin. This marked the first visual confirmation of the plane's resting place. Examination of the crash site gave important clues about the plane's final moments. The flaps positions suggested that the aircraft descended in a controlled way rather than free-falling, indicating that someone may have been at the controls until it hit the water. In the cockpit, investigators found evidence of deliberate actions. Circuit breakers had been pulled, and the communications systems were intentionally turned off. Experts believe this points to a purposeful act from inside the cockpit, though the exact reason remains unclear. Recovery of the black boxes is necessary to fully understand the motive and the final events. A multinational team of aviation experts, including members of the original ATSB investigation, verified the drone's findings. Following confirmation, recovery operations began to retrieve the flight data recorders, any human remains, and DNA samples. The operation also aimed to document the wreckage carefully and gather evidence that could explain why the flight went off course and why it ended in the southern Indian Ocean. The discovery had a major emotional impact on the families of the passengers and crew. While the confirmation provided long-awaited closure regarding the plane's location, it also confirmed the tragic death of all 239 people on board. Governments and experts worldwide pledged support for recovery and investigation efforts. The discovery also highlighted the role of new technology, including deep-sea drones and advanced sonar, in solving long-standing mysteries. The finding of MH370 transformed it from an enduring mystery into a documented event. While many questions remain about the pilot's actions and the flight's course, the wreckage provides a foundation for understanding what happened. The site serves as a reminder of both the human need for answers and the persistence of scientists and investigators. Through innovation and careful investigation, the truth about Flight MH370 has finally come to light, ending over a decade of uncertainty. After years of searching the skies and seas with little to show, how could the latest technology finally lead investigators to the hidden resting place of MH370? Let's take a closer look. Hunting the deep. How technology finally found MH370. Underwater Infinity, a private underwater exploration company, made progress in the loss of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 after years of fruitless searches. They made advantage of cutting-edge deep-sea technologies that could reach places that earlier searches were unable to. Autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, capable of diving up to 6,000 meters, were launched by Ocean Infinity. Neither wires nor direct human control were needed for these AUVs. They used sub-bottom profilers, multi-beam sonar, synthetic aperture sonar, and high-resolution sonar to study the ocean floor. Each robot gathered lots of data, which artificial intelligence was then used to analyze. The AI helped in locating odd things or shapes that might be man-made rather than naturally occurring seabed formations. Independent researchers used weak signal propagation reporter (WSPR) technology to create a new way for tracking the plane's trajectory at the same time. Researchers found that WSPR might detect minute disruptions generated by airplanes in flight, although it was first used to examine amateur radio signals. To check the most likely location of the plane crash, they integrated this data with satellite signals, models of ocean currents, and patterns of debris drift. This approach identified the Seahorse Zone, a remote region of the southern Indian Ocean that had not been found in earlier searches. Previous missions were unable to find the plane because the site was very deep and challenging to search. In 2024 and 2025, Ocean Infinity conducted a targeted search using the WSPR-guided coordinates. Their AUVs used AI to guide them as they thoroughly scanned the seafloor, highlighting areas of interest. Sonar scans from May 2025 showed shapes resembling a Boeing 777. The first item was partially covered in silt and appeared to be a wing. Nearby, more pieces were found, including a portion of the fuselage and a segment that resembled the tail. Debris was strewn all over the seabed, indicating that the plane struck the water at a great speed. To prove the find, experts planned more research using cameras, chemical tests, and comparison with MH370's blueprints. Plans for recovery were used right away. Robotic arms and special deep-sea submersibles were ready to gently recover the wreckage. The flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, which may disclose the aircraft's speed, altitude, engine settings, and cockpit communications, were of utmost significance. The recovery was very hard due to the depth, underwater currents, and extended submersion. Experts warned that the black boxes might be damaged or hard to decipher even if they were found. Despite these findings, there are still a lot of unanswered questions. The investigation continues, combining human effort and technology to solve one of aviation's greatest mysteries. What do you think about the crash of Flight MH370? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for joining us as we uncovered the long-hidden story of Flight MH370 and the incredible effort that finally revealed its resting place. If this deep dive gave you a new understanding of the mystery and the technology that cracked it, don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to explore more astonishing discoveries. See you there.